It made me start to think about Floyd Mayweather and the kind of lane that Devin Haney is trying to fill. You covered Floyd Mayweather a lot in your career. Do you think that Haney is on a Mayweatherian path? This is the Knockdown, where we talk about the biggest stories in boxing. I'm Chris Mannix, joined by my colleague Greg Bishop. And Greg, I want to talk about Devin Haney because last weekend we saw a masterful performance from Devin Haney, just blanking Regis Prograis, dominating a guy that I thought was at the top of the 140-pound division from start to finish. And it got me thinking about where Devin Haney is at this point in his career. 25 years old, just sold out the Chase Center in San Francisco, headlining his second straight pay-per-view. It made me start to think about Floyd Mayweather and the kind of lane that Devin Haney is trying to fill. You covered Floyd Mayweather a lot in your career. Do you think that Haney is on a Mayweatherian path?
Absolutely. And, the thing I would say about Haney that really stands out to me, and this sounds kind of weird about a guy who I think is consensus top 10, top 5, pound for pound. He's got a legitimate claim at one even. But for some reason, he tends to get underrated. This performance to me was a reminder to boxing, with like the entire world of it, that this guy has skills, that he's tough to hit, that he has strategy and game plan and technical proficiency. And if a guy who's, really well respected can still be underrated, that would be him. That's why I love the Mayweather comparison that you laid out, because to me, I think there's a lot of similarities. I think Floyd's style as he got older in his career came to be more appreciated. I think he reminded people in boxing that defense is okay and that not every fight has to be a bloody war. And I think that you're seeing a similar trajectory here.
Yeah, I think that Regis Prograis laid out a lot of the reasons that people don't really like Devin Haney. And the biggest is because there's a perception that he had things easy, that he came from a little bit of money, that his dad gave him whatever he needed. It didn't come up the ways that a Mayweather did, or more specifically, a Prograis did. Someone that didn't start boxing until he was 17 years old, had to have multiple jobs coming up, dealt with everything that happened during Hurricane Katrina. But the reality is, Devin Haney is really good, and he is on that Mayweather path because the numbers, they back it up. You look at what Mayweather was at age 25. He was 28-0 before he turned 26. He had won one world title. He defended 11 times against some notable opposition, but he had not yet headlined a pay-per-view. At age 25, Devin Haney is 31-0. He has won now 5 world titles. He has been in 10 world title fights, if you include his first interim title fight a few years ago. And he's now headlined a couple of pay-per-views and put butts in the seats. There was more than 16,000 fans that were attending that fight at Chase Center on Saturday. These weren't, this wasn't a papered building. These were paying customers at the Chase Center that came to see Devin Haney. So that's another feather in his cap. If he was going to continue on that path, what's the next step there? How does he get to that true Floyd Mayweather level and kind of build himself even further?
Well, that's what I love about his career and where it's at right now. I mean, you want a response to the cushy childhood or slightly more cushy childhood. It's there in the resume and in the ring. I mean, this is a guy who fought Vasily Lomachenko last year, and I thought that fight was pretty close, but there's no shame in winning a close fight against that guy. This is a guy who took on Prograis, who stylistically was supposed to be difficult for him, who was supposed to be a bigger guy, and pretty much blanked him. I mean, Devin Haney hasn't run from anybody, and that division and all the divisions around it are totally stacked. I mean, Prograis had a very close fight with Josh Taylor. You look at all the different options. And I think, we're talking about a Mayweather path, but I think the top end of it is higher because there are so many guys in and around those divisions that Devin Haney can fight. And he'll go to Australia. He'll go back to Australia. He will fight Vasily, in a tough technical matchup. He will shrug off Prograis when he's trying to press him. And I just think the options there are incredible. And I hope that we take the time to appreciate that Devin Haney does these things. Now, maybe he's not knocking every guy out, but boxing isn't only one way. I think the top end of where this goes could be, multiple division champion. Maybe he's up to 147 by the end of his career. I think you're looking at some classic fights, and I hope that we can appreciate the style with which he wins them.
Yeah, and a memo to other writers out there that are writing about the Lomachenko fight: stop using the word controversial. It really wasn't controversial unless your last name is Lomachenko or Klimas, because that's the reality of it. It was a close fight that Devin Haney won. When you have the best against the best, more often than not, you are going to see guys in close fights. And I think you're right. Devin Haney, he wants all the smoke. So whether it's against Ryan Garcia at 140, Teofimo Lopez at 140, somebody like Terrence Crawford or Boots Ennis at 147, he's going to continue to chase the very best fights out there. That's only going to burnish that legacy. This weekend, we've got another example of the best against the best. You've got Bam Rodriguez, 2-division title holder, the runner-up for Fighter of the Year in 2022. He is going to take on Sonny Edwards. Now, Sonny Edwards is not a well-known commodity in the U.S., but he is undefeated. He has pound-for-pound level skill. And this is going to be, I think, Greg, another chess match type of fight that is going to come down to maybe the final couple of rounds. Who do you like in this matchup, Bam Rodriguez or Sonny Edwards?
You know, I like Bam, but I also think, like you're saying, that this is going to be a closer fight than people anticipate. I mean, one thing to love about Bam is the style with which he fights. I mean, it's kind of the opposite of what we've been talking about already. I sort of see this one being action-heavy, engagement-heavy, you know, war-ish, fight of the year type candidate. And I'm very excited to see it. But, you know, so far, everything we've seen from Bam Rodriguez is that he can really fight.
When it comes to Bam and Sonny, two things jump to mind. One, how well recovered is Bam Rodriguez from his last fight? He won his last fight back in the spring, but in that fight, he suffered a broken jaw, and he has not started sparring, or didn't start sparring, until November. That's a bit of a red flag. Now, Sonny Edwards is not a power puncher, but if I'm Sonny Edwards, I'm thinking about testing that shin pretty early to see how Bam's punch resistance is coming into this fight. What works against Sonny Edwards, though, is that he's the more pure boxer. He's going to use the entirety of the ring. He's going to try to stick and run, and that could be an effective style to a certain extent. But if you're the UK fighter and you're coming to the US fighter's backyard, and Bam Rodriguez is from Texas, but it's going to be a pro-Bam crowd in Arizona on Saturday, you're already kind of bumping up against the wall there. You're already going to have to do some work in the eyes of the judges. That's why I think it's going to be really hard for Sonny Edwards to get a decision against Bam Rodriguez in the US. He's going to have to win 8 of these rounds clean, not close, clean, where there's no doubt, in order for him to get a decision on these judges' scorecards, because he's not a power puncher, only 4 knockouts on his resume, doesn't have that kind of fight-changing pop where he can land those types of shots. I think it's going to be a real challenge for him to get in Arizona in the US. But look, to the winner go the spoils. The winner of this fight, if you're Bam Rodriguez, it's Juan Francisco Estrada, big fight at 115. If you're Sonny Edwards, it's Chocolatito, big fight at 115. These guys are both going to make a lot of money, but there's a lot of line, a lot more money to be made down the line against some of those bigger fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one of the reasons that I like the stylistic matchup here is everything you just laid out. You know, you talk to boxers who have taken that kind of shot, who have broken a bone in their face, you know, a bone that's going to get hit, and they don't necessarily know how they're going to react when it comes to the first fight back. And so I think the strategy you laid out is perfect, and that he can test it early. He just might not like the answer. You know, he might like it a lot, or he might say, okay, this guy's totally fine, which means he's going to be pressing me all night, which means, you know, he'll be the one doing a lot of the hitting.
Going to be a good one, no doubt. Glendale, Arizona, Saturday, live on DAZN. Greg, appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.